Roswell Air Force Base in Alabama, Brooks Air Force Base in Texas, their contact address, the Pensacola Naval Station in Florida, the Defense Language Institute of the Defense Intelligence Agency in Monterey, California. The hands of intelligence are all over these people.
So, to sum up, the main hijackers trained and fought in ex-Yugoslavia, where they were paid by a company of mercenaries that was connected to the Pentagon. Thanks to the CIA, they got entry visas to the United States. Once they were in America, they did everything they could to be recognized and to attract attention to themselves, since they were sure of their impunity. They trained in American military bases and went to flight schools, although they didn't learn to fly.
All the testimony about these lessons indicate that these men were completely incapable of maneuvering even small aeroplanes. For example, Mohammed Atta hired an aeroplane from a flight school, but he was not even able to take off. So he left it there on the runway and went away. Regarding two other pilots, their instructor, Rick Grazer, said to investigators and the press that he could not understand how these two could have maneuvered an aeroplane. His exact words were that it was like Dumb and Dumber in a plane.
Two FBI agents, Colleen Rowley in Minneapolis in the state of Minnesota, and another who was in Phoenix in Arizona, sent messages to the FBI's headquarters in Washington, saying, more or less, "Watch out. There are many Arabs here who have enrolled in flight schools."
The first person in the flight school that called the FBI took a big risk, because at the time what he was doing was reporting about a customer, a paying customer. And those flight schools depended upon, to a certain extent, foreign pilots. And so now he's reporting about a paying customer. You know, this person is very suspicious. A list of facts that pointed to Moussaoui being a terrorist. He wanted to learn to fly but not take off and land. I have never seen such a unusual person seeking flight instruction.
Colleen Rowley immediately informed her superiors in Washington, but nothing happened. Their investigations were obstructed.
There were no warning signs that I'm aware of that would indicate this type of operation in the country.
I wrote a memo in May of 2002, 12, 13-page memo, is the Joint Intelligence Committee report. And both of those were, I hope, you know, basically what my memo did was expose that this was not true, that 9/11 could not have been prevented. The FBI's acting director, a guy by the name of Picard, during the summer of 9/11, he attempted to brief Attorney General Ashcroft about terrorism a couple of times. And the first time, Ashcroft showed little interest in terrorism. In fact, Ashcroft ended up ranking terrorism as his lowest priority in August of 2001. At one point, Picard was told by Ashcroft, "I don't want to hear any more about terrorism."
After September 11, 2001, when I heard about the planes crashing into the World Trade Towers and into the Pentagon, I said, geez, these were the same people, according to the Los Angeles Times, who had gotten their visas from the American Consul General at Jeddah. I called the Federal Bureau of Investigation and tell them essentially the basics of the Visas for Terrorists program. I did this, I called and I called and I called. I was passed from one office of the FBI to another, and ended up at the Washington field office, and someone there said, "We'll get back to you." Well, 6 years later, I'm still waiting.
We received these audio tapes that were obtained 3 months before September 11, 2001, from a different field office, Iranian informant who'd been on FBI's payroll for 10 years, since about 1991, 1992, in April 2001. And in April 2001, this informant told the FBI that on a separate issue, he had obtained information about Al-Qaeda, bin Laden, issuing an attack in the United States that would involve 5 major cities, and it will involve airplanes, and that the attack was going to take place within the next few months. They took the information, they found it important, they filled out forms, they came back to the headquarters, and then they filed it. They gave it to the superiors, right? Nothing happened. 2 months later, they met with the same informant again. And the informant asked, he said, "Did you do something with that information I gave you, because it came from really reliable sources?" And the agent said, "Yes, we gave it to our superiors." Well, nothing happened. Nobody followed up on this.
They discovered Ramzi Youssef's computer with the Bojinka plan in 1996 in the Philippines. It talked about taking hijacked planes and running them into the Pentagon, the White House, the Capitol, the CIA headquarters, and the Twin Towers. The Pentagon staged an exercise a year before, in October of 2000, at the site with the Arlington County Fire Department to simulate a plane running into the Pentagon and how the fire responders would get there and what they would do. So this was not outside the box or, you know, out in the blue. They not only expected it, they prepared for it.
One of the most frequent declarations made by the Bush administration was that these attacks took us by surprise.
I don't think anybody could have predicted that they would try to use an airplane as a missile, a hijacked airplane as a missile.
And I don't think the prior government that could envision flying airplanes into buildings on such a massive scale.
Secondo USA Today, dal 1999.
According to USA Today, in 1999, the American Air Force conducted special exercises 4 times per year in which the hijacking of civil aeroplanes by terrorists was simulated. The selected targets were the Twin Towers and the Pentagon.
I don't think anybody could have
the prior government that could envision flying airplanes into buildings.
Could have predicted.
I don't think the prior government that could envision flying airplanes into buildings.
On the 11th of September 2002, the New York Times wrote, "1 year later, the public knows less about the circumstances of 2,801 deaths at the foot of Manhattan in broad daylight than people in 1912 knew within weeks about the Titanic."
5 years after that article, what happened that day is still a mystery.
My name is Bob McIlvaine. I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I lost my son Bobby, who was age 26, on September 11th, 2001. He had just gotten a job at Merrill Lynch. Already, I'm getting emotional. It always hits you blind. And don't worry, I'll get over it. But I mean, anytime you just mention that day, it's like the pain just comes shooting up. And of course, when you keep doing this, it's just, you think it gets better, but it just never gets better.
The conclusions that the 9/11 Commission came to have been very disappointing. A lot of evidence has been ignored. Many witnesses were not called to testify. The final report glosses over a great many key issues.
A few days before 9/11, Mohammed Atta received a huge sum of money, about $100,000, money which was delivered by a Pakistani Secret Service officer. And the big scandal is that the 9/11 Commission of the US Congress never interrogated this man and never tried to bring light into the story of this 100,000.
While everybody was doing testimony televised to the whole nation, mine was behind closed door. Now, why would they want that behind closed door? That didn't make any sense. Anyway, I told them exactly the same argument that we have here, that we heard explosions, that people were burned prior the building getting hit by the plane, that these people were alive and they were available to be interrogated. And wow, what a surprise. The final report comes out. They didn't even mention my name, doesn't appear anywhere. They didn't call, not even once, any of the witnesses that we gave them. So you have 17 firefighters, you have 22 survivors, and they didn't call not even one of them.
Specifically me as a parent, I have an obligation to find out who murdered my son. The commission gave me nothing. 9/11 Commission was not an investigation.
Remember, the entire bin Laden family was on one of the planes later. They'd been collected from all over the United States, and they were whisked out of the country with the speed of light while the Pentagon was still burning.
So they asked Mueller, who authorized these people to leave the country? Well, someone in the State Department. Well, can you tell us who? He said, well, I don't recall. I don't recall. Another instance, General Myers, this is later on in the commission. They asked about Moussaoui. Do you recall getting any information concerning Moussaoui? His answer was, I don't recall. I don't recall. I don't recall. Ashcroft, Attorney General. Picard was the FBI head during the summer. He had testified that they had all these warnings, 71 different warnings about something happening this summer. And Ashcroft sat there and lied. He said, I didn't know these things. I didn't know these warnings. We were paying attention to terrorism.
No warning signs that I'm aware of.
Anybody
And I don't think the prior government could envision flying airplanes into buildings.
These people lied, and our government protected them. It was obvious they were lying. These people that people were testifying should have gone. Mueller should be in jail. Ashcroft should be in jail. Condoleezza Rice should be in jail.
I don't